All right, guys, today I'm going to be talking about anterior pelvic tilt, otherwise known as being in an extended posture in your lower back. You can see that where my glute is behind my torso. Okay, so in order to fix that, we're going to have to really address the way you're utilizing your glutes. Okay, so before I get into all these methods, I want you to feel the difference. Okay, I want you to get into a half kneeling position and just bring your arm into shoulder flexion with the same arm as the leg that's back, and just notice what you feel in the hip flexor and how you're moving in the upper body. Okay, after you do about 3 or 4 of those, being conscious of how you feel in the body with your body, I want you to flex that back glute now and bring it into shoulder flexion. Bring that arm into shoulder flexion. You should feel a little tug in that hip flexor. Now that's what we're chasing with the glutes. I'm trying to make sure you're using your glutes properly so that we're staying away from injuries, as well as increasing your the level of your performance. Now you might be asking, why am I feeling it in the hip flexor when I'm doing upper body movements? And this is where the lat comes in. The lat is actually connected all the way down from your glenohumeral joint all the way down to your pelvis. So now you can probably see or tell that when we're in that posterior tilt, it's going to change the way we use our lats, and that's going to change everything in the upper body. So here we go with the methods. All right, so before we get into the functioning of the glutes, we're going to have to address the symptoms that you already have. So being in that extended posture is going to blow up your lower back, hip flexors, and hamstrings. So you're most likely going to have discomfort and stiffness there, okay? So if you have that, let's address that by first doing soft tissue and deep tissue methods, okay? So you can go back to my post of all my soft tissue and deep tissue work, but I want you to spend extra time on those hip flexors, hamstrings, and not the lower back though, because remember, we don't have ribs protecting the spine, so we don't want to be rolling in that area, okay? All right, so once you roll out your hip flexors and hamstrings, we're gonna create some length in the hip flexor now because it's so blown up and you're tugging on it all the time. So the first stretch you're gonna do is the couch stretch, okay? You're gonna come up to a table or a wall that you can just support yourself with, and you're gonna get in a lunge position or a half kneeling position, and you're going to grab your back ankle and get a stretch in that hip flexor. Notice how I'm upright. I'm not leaning forward like this to get a fake hip flexor stretch, by the way. So to make it real, we're gonna have to flex that back glute in this position, and you should feel a stretch deep all the way from your hip flexor down to your knee, close to your knee on that thigh, okay? And we're gonna hold this position for about 30 seconds or a minute if you can tolerate it. So get a pad too under your knee so you can sit here for a while, okay? And you're just going to inhale, and when you exhale, I want you to flex the glute a little more and get more tension in the hip flexor, okay? We're just creating length, for a better word. Okay, once you do 30 seconds of that, we're gonna move on to the exercises. All right, now that we've gotten some length in the hip flexor and just kind of stretched it out, it's time to start addressing the function of the glutes, okay? So notice how I didn't stretch out my hamstrings or do anything with my lower back. Well, that's gonna come with the function of the glutes, which we kind of already did with that couch stretch too, okay? But you're gonna constantly get that stretch with the hip flexor anyway, with all these exercises. All right, so first thing we're gonna do, hip thrusts to strengthen our glutes. This is the first method. You're gonna come lay flat on the ground on your back, and instead of you just hip thrusting like this, I want you to start off by bringing your glutes to posterior tilt and feel that position real quick, okay? And we're gonna do a couple of those hip thrusts, not even hip thrusts, we're just getting posterior tilt, okay? Do like 4 or 5 of those. Now we're gonna get into hip thrusts. With the hip thrust, I want you to really just focus on using your glutes and not your hamstrings. You're bringing your glutes up with just your glutes. Now, how are we gonna do that? I'm gonna press through my heels instead of my toes or being flat on the ground. I want you to focus on pressing through those heels. Press through the heel and bring your pelvis all the way up, okay? Now, you still don't know if you're really utilizing your glutes properly, or maybe your hamstrings are still blowing up. Well, this is when bands come in handy, okay? You're just going to tie the band around your thighs, and now you're getting more action from your glutes by pulling out with your knees, okay? But you don't really need to focus on pulling apart with the knees. That's just naturally gonna happen. That's why bands are an amazing tool to use in this exercise. You're just going up, holding that position. Same thing. Doing the same exercise, not changing the focus. We're still trying to get that posterior tilt and get hip thrust. Do the hip thrust. But now we just have the tool so we can empty our mind and start doing the hip thrust knowing that we're engaging our glutes, okay? Once that's easy, or once you do a lot of those, you can progress by doing one leg hip thrust. Keeping the same thing in mind, okay? Getting that posterior tilt. But you don't really need to think about that anymore. Just do the hip thrust. At this point, you should be able to get into that posterior tilt without an issue, okay? Cool. And I'll talk about the rip schemes later, but that's all for that. All right, so those hip thrusts are a great way for you guys to start utilizing your glutes properly because it's so simple. All I'm trying to do is for you guys to use those glutes by quieting down those hamstrings. Cool. Now I'm gonna add hamstrings into the equation, okay? How do I use the hamstrings properly with my glutes? All right, well, this first exercise, how am I gonna do this? I'm gonna lay flat on my back, bring my feet on top of the ball. You can also use a slide board instead if you have access to one of those. I just only have a exercise ball, so that's what I'm using today. But anyway, you're gonna come into you're gonna hip thrust first. Now you're firing those hamstrings and your glutes at the same time, and you're just going to roll out and back. Roll out and back. Now we're using the glutes properly without blowing up our hamstrings and lower back, okay? So when we start this exercise, I want you to just focus on the eccentric portion, which is the lengthening of the hamstrings, just to keep it simple. So hip thrust, eccentrically control, and then down, back up, hip thrust, eccentrically control with your hamstrings, and down. Do a couple of those. Once you feel that, I want you to bring it to I want you to add the concentric portion with it. So it'll be concentric, eccentric. And on the concentric portion, you can go quick. I want you to be explosive on that. Okay, that's how muscles work. Eccentric portion, nice and slow, concentric, quick. Okay? And you can progress on these by just doing one leg exercise, ball or hips, or slide board leg curls as well, okay? Same rules apply, and use your hands to stabilize yourself on this. No need to challenge yourself by going no hands, because that's not really gonna help you with what we're chasing. We're trying to chase the function of the glutes with the hamstrings in a proper manner. All right, so you don't know if you're still getting that posterior tilt now with those exercise ball hamstring curls? Well, here's another variation called the core engaged hamstring curls that I'm gonna show you to properly use your core and your glutes in posterior tilt with the hamstrings, okay? So, we're gonna just hook up a band on a pole or anything you want, and I'm gonna pull the band down. And I'm going to feel my posterior tilt first. Get to that posterior tilt. If you have a slide board, you're just doing slide board hamstring curls. But for this, I'm just going to do hamstring walkouts, okay, for the guys that don't have the slide board. And I'm just going to climb down. And make sure your core is engaged. Actually, you don't need to make sure because it becomes automatic with this band, okay? So I'm walking out and in while getting that posterior tilt. All right, so that's just another variation. So those are great exercises for you guys to simplify things and get the hamstrings involved with the glute, okay? Why? Because I'm isometrically contracting my glutes. Basically means I'm just flexing my glutes and holding it in position while I get the hamstrings involved. Now we're gonna have to move in and out of those glutes. So hinging the hip properly into my glute and out, okay? So those are gonna be movement exercises. The guys that have been doing my movement exercises, fire me up, baby. Now you're ready to go. The guys who've been doing that for a long time, you're gonna notice that on the bowler squat, you're loading into your glute properly and out. Bowler squat to figure 4, look at that. Look at how I'm getting into my glute and out. With the single leg deadlift or stiff leg deadlift, look at that. Look at how I'm loading into my glute. Now I'm gonna do the side lunge as well with the overhead reach. I'm loading into my glute properly and out. So the guys that have been doing that, I've prepared you to take it to the next level. But for the guys that haven't, I strongly encourage you to do all those exercises. You can go back on my posts and you'll see them. Master those exercises, and then we can start getting into plyometrics and all that. I wanna make sure that you're properly loading into the glute, so when we get into deadlifts and when we get into deceleration movements, you're getting into the right spot, because if not, you're just gonna hurt your lower back or just blow up your hip flexors and hamstrings in the wrong way, okay? Okay, so those movement exercises that I talked to you guys about right now, those are gonna be very helpful in your warm-up. So just do a set of those, 5 each, and then we'll get into other leg exercises that you can do to strengthen the glutes in the right manner. But now I'm not just isolating it and contracting it in one place. I'm moving in and out of the glute, okay? So the easiest one, we're just gonna do the split squats. You're going down, make sure you're in the right position, flexing your glutes at this position, and up. And keeping that glute flex, okay? Down, slow, and up, quick. Remember, lengthening all the muscles and shortening them, quick. Okay? That's the split squat. It's pretty simple, but we're just making sure your glute's in the right place, loading in and out of it, okay? After that, once you feel good with that, we're gonna do forward lunges. You're gonna have to be able to go forward and jump back with it, okay? Keeping the same things in mind, but I don't want you to think too much. Just feel your body. Listen to your body instead of thinking about it, okay? After that, we're gonna do reverse lunges. Reverse lunges, keeping the same thing in mind, but it's gonna be a little harder to stabilize yourself going backwards as you lunge. So it's a good way to just challenge yourself. Once you're comfortable with those 2 lunges, you can do reverse lunge to a forward lunge. Now we're moving in and out on both ways, right? We're mastering all the angles that we need to go to, or all the directions we need to go to. Sorry about that. And another good exercise, my least favorite to be honest, but that's just because it hurts with tight hips, okay? Is just the side lunge. Side lunge down and up. Making sure we're loading into this glute in the proper manner. The knees not caving in. I'm keeping it out, making sure the glute's engaged. And down and jump back up. Okay? Load and up. Master this direction too. So now I've given you all the exercises to move into the glute in different angles, right? To the side, forward, back, putting it together. You can also just improvise, or not improvise, but just put the exercises together by maybe doing a forward lunge to a side lunge. I don't know, but mix it up. Have fun with it, okay? I just want you guys to have fun when you're working out. Now, if you want to add weights to those exercises, I'm going to show you why you don't want to just hold them on the side and why the goblet hold is way better than that, okay? So the guys in quarantine, you'll probably have some weights like 25s in your house right now. But if you're just holding it here, and doing the exercise, we're not going to really fix your anterior pelvic tilt. And we're dragging your shoulder down. We're holding your shoulders down like this. I don't want your scaps to be in that depression, okay? Depression meaning just sagging down like that, okay? That's not a great position for your scaps to be in. So, the goblet position is gonna be holding the dumbbell here, and I'm gonna go over front squatting again versus back squatting in a different post later this week. But, we're just gonna hold the goblet position. Why is this position awesome? Because I'm, with the weight being anteriorly loaded, which just means in front of me, I'm engaging my core automatically, okay? Which I can't get in those other two positions, back squat and the weights on the side. Look, I can be an extension, but if I hold the dumbbell here, my core is activated and my glute is scooping under in posterior tilt, right? So I can just do that and do the split squats or the lunges. And it's perfect because all my weight is in the correct position and I'm getting a very clean lunge. It might be better to do it with weight, even if it's 25 pounds, because that's just gonna help you make sure you're in the right position without a coach having to look and be like, hey, your glute's not flexed or anything like that, okay? Another tip for you guys on deadlifts and exercises where you're hinging your hip and picking something up from the ground is, for the guys in extended postures, you're gonna come up, but you're not gonna come up all the way up because you're not gonna be used to firing your glutes as much. So you're gonna still be using your lower back and you're gonna feel pain there, okay? So for those guys, I want you to come up and make sure you're coming all the way up and extending. So flex your glutes. Not extending, but thrusting your hips all the way through. Okay, down and thrusting your glutes all the way through. Got it? That way we're not hurting our lower back and we're making sure that we're using our glutes properly. All right, now I'm going to introduce a method to you guys that you probably didn't even think about until you did those shoulder flexions on that half kneeling position. Okay, now you know and feel that the upper body and the way it functions has a lot to do with the way you're utilizing your glute too. So let me show you. My favorite position for you guys is gonna be the half kneeling position, okay? For the same reasons you guys should understand by now. I'm gonna be in the half kneeling position and I can do rows and presses in this position, okay? I'm gonna get in the half kneeling position, flex the glute, and row. Flex the glute and row, okay? Now I want you guys to feel what it feels like without that. So let's just not flex the glute and row. I don't feel anything in my mid back right now, right underneath my scap, where I should be feeling if I'm properly using my glutes, okay? So now flex your glute, and when you're bringing the band back, you should feel this guy firing and activating as you row. Bring it back, okay? Pretty cool, right? Now I'm gonna press. Same thing. I'm going to be in the half kneeling position, flex the glute, and press. You're not gonna feel it as much in this, but trust me, you guys already know that the function's gonna be much better with the flexed glute, okay? Now, what I also see in the half kneeling position is the back toe being down like this. Now, if my back toe is down like this, it's not gonna really matter as long as my glute's flexed, but we're not gonna have a really good base. Because what if you slip? You don't have very good traction in this position. So get that toe up, make sure everything's engaged, and then do the exercise in the half kneeling position, okay? Now I've addressed all the issues with a poorly functioning glute or that extended position, okay? I want you guys to try all these exercises out before you go on and say, oh no, like I don't need to do this stuff. Feel it first. I want you guys to discover that everything's connected and you can become a better performer and live a healthier lifestyle by doing these exercises. Cool.